Imagine waking up one ordinary Monday morning in America. The sun rises over New York City. Cars rush down the I-95. People line up at Starbucks ordering their usual lattes. Everything feels normal until it isn't, because today is the day the unthinkable happens. A chilling notification hits every phone nearly simultaneously. Service error, unable to connect to your bank. At first, people assume it's just another glitch. Maybe Chase is updating its servers. Maybe Bank of America is doing scheduled maintenance. Maybe Wells Fargo is having another technical difficulty. But then the ATMs stop working, every single one. From Los Angeles to Chicago, from Houston to Miami, machines spit out the same cold message, temporarily out of service. People in lines stare at the screens, confused, annoyed, but not scared. Not yet. Because fear only begins when the news stations break into regular programming with a trembling voice that Americans haven't heard since 9/11. We are receiving reports that several major U.S. banks have halted all withdrawals. Customers cannot access their money. And just like that, the system that Americans trust more than anything, the banking system, begins to collapse. Before we go deeper, hit the like button if you enjoy these high-impact documentary stories and subscribe so you never miss another shocking breakdown like this. Because what you're about to hear is not fiction. It is exactly what experts warn would happen if American banks shut down today, even for 24 hours. And the truth is much darker than people think. The first cracks appear in the cities where money moves fastest: New York, San Francisco, Dallas. Corporate payrolls freeze. Bill payments decline. Credit card transactions fail. Small businesses try contacting their banks, but hotlines are flooded. Emails bounce back. Apps refuse to load. Then something even stranger happens. Zelle shuts down. Cash App freezes transfers. PayPal locks accounts. Venmo declines payments. Now the panic begins. People start calling friends, coworkers, family members. Is your card working? Try the ATM near your place. Did Wells Fargo say anything? Why is my savings at zero? Is this a glitch? Social media erupts. Twitter threads explode. TikTok floods with panic videos filmed inside grocery stores and gas stations, because that's when the next wave hits. Debit cards stop working at checkout. Imagine standing in line at a Walmart in Phoenix. Your card is full. Your kids are waiting. You swipe your card. Declined. You try again. Declined. The cashier looks at you with nervous eyes because the last 12 customers had the exact same problem. People in stores start shouting. Some push carts toward the exit. Others abandon their groceries. Fear spreads faster than wildfire. Across America, the same message flashes on POS screens. Bank connection lost. Please pay with cash. And millions of Americans suddenly realize something terrifying. They don't have cash, because America has gone digital. Everything, bills, groceries, gas, rent, subscriptions, flows through the banks. But today, the banks aren't flowing. Today, the banks are gone. The government tries to calm people, sending out an emergency broadcast explaining that this is a temporary outage, but Americans know when they're being lied to. There is no such thing as a temporary nationwide banking blackout. What happens next is always the same. Step 1, gas stations shut down. Modern pumps rely on electronic verification. No connection, no gas. Planes can't take off, trucks can't refuel. The American supply chain begins to choke. By noon, shelves in supermarkets start to empty because deliveries halt instantly. Farmers can't get paid. Suppliers can't process orders. Logistics grind to a stop. Step 2, hospitals switch to emergency mode. No patient billing, no drug orders, no insurance payments, no supply deliveries. Doctors keep working, but the system around them collapses. Step 3, the stock market freezes. Trading halts. Indices plummet. Investors lose access to portfolios. In just minutes, the S&P 500 bleeds billions before the government forces a shutdown. Step 4, people begin rushing to banks physically. Chase branches in Manhattan overflow with crowds. Bank of America buildings in Atlanta go on lockdown. Wells Fargo branches in Denver have lines stretching around the block. Customers scream at employees who have no answers. Police step in to control mobs. In the chaos, rumors spread like wildfire. The dollar has collapsed. China hacked the banks. The government is seizing accounts. Your money is gone. Withdraw now before it's too late. By 5 p.m., panic hits a boiling point. Roads clog. Fights break out. Some stores close early, afraid of riots. People race to ATMs that haven't worked all day, hoping they magically turn back on. And remember, this is just the first few hours. Now imagine 24 hours. Without access to money, Americans fall into survival mode with terrifying speed. Fear overrides logic. People grab whatever supplies they can. Some merchants start accepting cash only, but cash becomes scarce. Hoarding begins. And then the darker side of society emerges. Small crimes grow, break-ins rise, police departments issue warnings, curfews are considered, National Guard deployments are discussed in emergency meetings. Why? Because the most dangerous thing in America is not the banks shutting down. It is what happens to people when their financial lifeline disappears. The U.S. government calls emergency meetings involving the Federal Reserve, the Treasury Department, major bank CEOs, and cybersecurity intelligence units. But the truth behind the scenes is worse than the public is told. The entire system is interconnected. If one major bank falls, the others are dragged down with it. And if they fail together, America enters financial Armageddon. The Federal Reserve tries to inject emergency liquidity. But liquidity is useless if nobody can access it. And behind the scenes, another war is beginning. A digital one. Foreign powers attempt cyber intrusions. Rival nations see opportunity. The global market panics. The US dollar starts collapsing in international exchanges. Countries holding American debt begin dumping bonds to protect themselves. The cost of imports skyrockets. Oil shoots past $200 per barrel. Inflation accelerates like a runaway train. Meanwhile, in American neighborhoods, the fear becomes physical. People gather outside ATM kiosks with flashlights hoping for a miracle. Families search drawers for old envelopes, forgotten cash, spare change. Children ask parents why they can't buy food. Americans accustomed to convenience experience vulnerability they never imagined. But the real terror comes when Americans learn the truth. Banks shutting down doesn't just stop access to money. It stops the economy itself. Without working banks, paychecks vanish, rent payments fail, mortgages default, loan systems break, student loans halt, small businesses collapse, and just when it seems like things can't get worse, a leaked report hits the internet claiming something catastrophic. Several U.S. banks are insolvent. Now the panic becomes irreversible. In cities like Detroit, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and San Francisco, people take to the streets chanting for answers. News helicopters film crowds swelling outside financial headquarters. The government attempts press conferences, but reporters bombard officials with questions they can't answer. Is our money safe? When will the banks reopen? Is the FDIC able to cover these losses? Is this the beginning of a depression? Is the dollar collapsing? Americans feel betrayed because the one institution they believed could never fail has failed. This is where the nightmare truly begins, when a banking shutdown lasts longer than 24 hours, because that is when grocery stores run dry, when pharmacies have no medication shipments, when truck drivers stop working, when gas stations remain empty, when employers cannot pay workers, when city services begin to break down. And once workers stop showing up to their jobs, police, fire departments, sanitation, transportation, hospital staff, America slides toward complete societal breakdown. All because the banks shutting down cuts off the financial bloodstream of the country. Before this gets even darker and we go deeper into the next phase of the collapse, hit that like button if this is opening your eyes, and subscribe right now so you never miss another critical documentary. Because the second half of this story reveals what really happens when the banking shutdown continues past the first 24 hours, and the consequences Americans are not prepared for. But the true collapse doesn't happen in the first 24 hours, it happens on the second day. Because when dawn rises across America after a full night of banking blackout, something changes in the air. The panic hardens, the fear becomes real, the sense of maybe this is temporary begins to die. The second day is when Americans start to understand that the banking shutdown isn't just an inconvenience, it's the beginning of a new reality. In New York City, commuters attempt to board the subway only to discover that the entire MetroCard system is down. Payment servers are offline. Transit authorities announce that trains will run as possible, but chaos swallows the stations. Thousands jump turnstiles, others push through gates, and overwhelmed officers give up trying to enforce order. In Los Angeles, freeways are jammed at 6 a.m. because gas stations remain closed, leaving tens of thousands stranded. Some drivers abandon their cars on the shoulder. Others walk miles in the California heat, hoping to find a working pump. In Houston, hundreds gather outside grocery stores before they open, clutching whatever cash they have. Shelves that were partially stocked yesterday are nearly empty today. No trucks arrived overnight, and one by one, stores begin limiting purchases. 1 gallon of water per person, 2 cans of soup, no meats, no dairy. In Atlanta, small businesses put handwritten signs on their doors. Closed, no payments working. A few businesses try to stay open with cash-only policies, but most Americans have less than $40 in paper money. Some have none at all. And that's when the violence begins. Not widespread, not yet, but enough to show the first cracks in society. A desperate man tries to rob a convenience store in Miami, screaming that his daughter needs food. A woman in Chicago gets into a physical fight with another shopper over the last loaf of bread. A gas station in Detroit is looted by a crowd after its owner refuses to sell fuel because he cannot verify payments. Police departments issue statements begging for calm, but officers know the truth. This is only the beginning. Meanwhile, inside government bunkers and emergency conference rooms, panic spreads at the highest levels. The Federal Reserve, the Treasury, the NSA, and the Department of Homeland Security huddle in frantic meetings. The president receives hourly briefings. Every discussion ends with the same terrifying conclusion: the system cannot be restarted. The failure isn't just a glitch. It isn't a server problem. It isn't a simple cyber attack. The banks are frozen because the entire digital infrastructure that supports American banking has collapsed under pressure. Customer databases are corrupted. Payment networks are offline. Internal communication channels have failed. Backup systems aren't syncing. Cloud services are overrun. Security protocols trip over themselves, locking out even bank employees. It's the perfect storm. The government considers using emergency powers to nationalize the banks temporarily, but they hesitate. Doing that would confirm the panic. And panic is the one thing the government cannot control. Meanwhile, another crisis emerges. The US dollar begins to die. Foreign markets were closed during the first hours of the collapse, but now they are open, and the world reacts with brutal speed. Overnight, Japan dumps billions in US Treasury securities. European traders panic when updates from America show no progress. China immediately restricts all dollar-based transfers. The value of the dollar drops, then drops again, then plummets. American citizens have no access to their own money, and the money they theoretically have is losing value by the hour. This is when the hoarding begins. People in cities like Seattle, Boston, and Phoenix swarm local stores and buy anything with value: batteries, canned food, water, first aid kits. Whatever supplies are left vanish by midday. Families board up windows, others pack cars to flee cities, unsure where they're going, but convinced that being in the city is a death sentence. And then the blackout enters its most dangerous phase: the collapse of trust. Trust is the invisible currency that keeps a society alive. Trust in banks, trust in the government, trust in the dollar, trust in the system. Once trust breaks, everything else collapses. In Dallas, landlords refuse to let tenants stay without cash. In Denver, pharmacies lock their doors when customers begin demanding medicine without payment. In Nashville, farmers refuse to ship produce to the city because buyers can't pay. In Orlando, theme parks shut down entirely, fearing riots. Then the internet fractures. Not entirely, not completely, but major platforms slow to a crawl. Banking websites remain offline. Card networks stay dark. Apps freeze. Payment gateways fail. Americans search for answers, but the answers never come. Late into the second night, the president addresses the nation. The speech is meant to calm the public, but the trembling in his voice tells the truth. The system isn't recovering anytime soon. He promises that federal teams are working around the clock. He promises that military cyber divisions are assisting. He promises that banks will reopen soon. But Americans don't believe him. Because for the first time in living memory, the United States looks powerless. And then something even more terrifying happens. The first bank fails, officially. A regional bank in the Midwest announces insolvency on its emergency website. No assets, no reserves, no recovery plan. Minutes later, another fails, then another, then four more. Each failure sends shockwaves through the entire financial system. Every American with a mortgage, a loan, a savings account, a 401k, a pension, or a credit card feels the aftershocks instantly. But the worst impact is still to come, because now the FDIC, America's last line of financial defense, faces a nightmare scenario. Millions of customers simultaneously asking for insurance coverage, more than the FDIC could ever pay, more than the US Treasury could handle, more than the entire American monetary system was built to withstand. The government prepares an emergency cash distribution operation. But cash is limited. Very limited. In cities like San Francisco and Washington, D.C., long lines form outside federal buildings offering emergency relief payments, but the lines stretch for miles, and the people standing in them know one thing: this isn't sustainable. And deep into the third day, the darkness of human nature finally breaks through. Looting spreads in parts of New York. Gun stores in Texas have crowds building outside before dawn. In Florida, fights erupt at gas stations where generators are still running. In California, armed groups begin guarding neighborhoods. Americans realize something chilling. Without money, society becomes primitive. The only things that matter now are food, water, medicine, transportation, energy, and protection. The banks are no longer the threat. People are. Meanwhile, behind sealed doors in Washington, the panic rises to a historic level. The Federal Reserve chairman presents a devastating report. We are facing a systemic collapse. Even if the system comes back online, confidence may not return. That is when the government considers the most extreme option, a complete national reset of the financial system. A reboot, a restructuring, a new currency, a new banking architecture, a digital system built from scratch. But launching such a system takes months, and America does not have months. Because on the streets, the situation worsens. Cities like Portland, Baltimore, and Philadelphia declare states of emergency. Local governments impose curfews. The National Guard deploys to protect supply routes. Rumors spread of martial law. Grocery stores are empty. Pharmacies are closed. Emergency rooms are overwhelmed. Public transit barely functions. Supply chains are breaking apart like glass. And in living rooms across America, families sit together in the dark, whispering the same question: how long can this last? The answer is terrifying, because a banking shutdown doesn't need to last weeks to break a nation. Just a few days is enough to collapse supply chains. A week is enough to plunge society into chaos. 2 weeks could permanently alter American life. Inside the Pentagon, generals warn that adversaries may take advantage of America's vulnerability. Cybersecurity teams work overtime. Diplomatic cables fly back and forth. Allies express fear. Enemies begin mobilizing. Every scenario ends the same way. If banks remain shut, America loses its financial leadership. And if America loses its financial leadership, the world order collapses. By the end of the third day, America stands on a knife's edge between stability and breakdown. And yet, there is still a chance to save everything. A secret backup system built for national emergencies. A recovery protocol created decades ago. A fail-safe hidden from the public to avoid panic. It's risky. It's untested. But it might be America's last hope. And the government prepares to activate it. But what happens if it fails? What happens if the emergency reboot sparks even more chaos? What happens if the new system cannot connect? What happens if the dollar collapses beyond repair? What happens if America's financial empire never recovers? Because when banks shut down, money becomes worthless. When money becomes worthless, people lose stability. When stability falls apart, society follows. And that is why experts warn that a banking shutdown, even a short one, could be the most dangerous event in modern American history. If you want more deep investigations like this, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another episode. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive. And remember, the world can change in a single day. The real question is, would you be ready?